You know that feeling when you're standing in front of a room, or maybe you're on one of those really high-stakes Zoom calls, or you've just hit send on a really crucial pitch email?
Oh, yeah, the absolute dread of waiting for a response.
Right. And you have this brilliant idea. You thought it all through. The logic is totally airtight. You just deeply believe in it. But when you put it out there, you just get like blank stares.
Just absolute cricket.
Exactly. It's like you're speaking in an entirely different language, and that brilliant idea just sort of evaporates into the void.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. We have all been in that room, and today we're looking at a source that explains exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how to actually fix it.
It is, it's a profoundly frustrating experience, and it usually stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain processes information.
Yeah.
We suffer from the curse of knowledge. We tend to think that if an idea is logically sound, that logic alone will just automatically win people over. But human beings are rarely, if ever, moved to action by pure logic, which is a really tough pill to swallow when you've spent hours building a rational slide deck.
Right.
But that is the core of our mission today. We are exploring the actual science of persuasion. We really want to figure out what actually makes you, me, and everyone else say yes.
And our guide for this is a classic. It's a very data-heavy manual from 1983 called How to Make Your Advertising Make Money by John Caples.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable text, and I want to emphasize right up front that, while the word advertising is in the title, this is not just a playbook for marketers selling consumer goods.
Right. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's basically a fundamental study of human psychology.
Exactly. Because whether you're pitching a new workflow in a board meeting or trying to write an email that your boss will actually read, or even just like trying to get your kids to clean their rooms, this source material offers a blueprint for capturing attention and inspiring action.
It really does.
So if this is our blueprint, okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin with a text that has this much historical data behind it?
Well, we begin by looking at the specific laboratory where this data was gathered, which was mail-order advertising.
Oh, right.
What makes this book so authoritative is that these mail-order pioneers were essentially the original data scientists.
Right, way before the internet.
Exactly, operating decades before the internet or any kind of algorithmic tracking. They didn't rely on focus groups or, boardroom opinions or aesthetic vibes to see if an ad worked.
They couldn't afford to, right?
No, every single ad they ran was a highly measurable, high-stakes sales test. If an ad ran in a magazine and 1,000 coupons came back with actual cash, it was a proven winner.
Wow.
And if it pulled 5 coupons, it was a total failure. They tested every single variable, every word, every picture, every font. So the insights we're discussing today aren't just abstract theories. They are literally forged in the fire of actual human behavior.
They had real skin in the game, like no vanity metrics, just pure results. So if we follow their roadmap, the very first hurdle we face is simply getting noticed. Because before you can persuade anyone of anything, you have to get them to stop whatever they're doing and actually listen to you.
Right, you have to break their preoccupation.
Yeah. And in the mail order world, that's the headline. Your daily life, that headline could be the subject line of an email or the title of a presentation or like the first 5 seconds of your pitch.
Yep.
And the source data proves that this initial gateway is where you either win or lose the entire game.
It is the ultimate bottleneck. I mean, you can have the most elegant, bulletproof argument in the world sitting in paragraph 2, but if your headline doesn't arrest their attention, paragraph 2 effectively doesn't exist.
Your message just never gets heard.
Exactly.
And what's wild to me is that the words that actually stop us in our tracks are incredibly simple. The source material points to this famous list compiled by direct marketing authority Vic Schwab. It's a list of 100 historically successful headlines.
Oh, this list is fascinating.
Yeah, and when you break down the most frequently used words in those winning formulas, the results are almost anticlimactic. Like the word you was used 31 times.
31 times out of 100.
Right. And your was used 14 times.
Yeah.
The next closest was how at 12 times and new at 10 times.
And the number one word.
The absolute, undisputed, ultimate attention-getting word across the board, the word free.
What's fascinating here is that we consistently confuse cleverness with effectiveness.
Oh, that's so true.
When we sit down to write a pitch, we often think we need, like, a massive vocabulary or a highly abstract concept to impress people.
We want to sound smart.
Right, but this data reveals a somewhat uncomfortable truth, which is that people are fundamentally driven by evolutionary self-interest, not a desire to be entertained by your clever wordplay.
Yeah.
When someone is scanning their inbox or looking at a poster, their brain is burning calories and subconsciously asking one primal question. What is in this for me? Does this aid my survival, my status, or my comfort?
So words like you and how to act almost like cognitive shortcuts then.
Exactly.
They instantly signal to the brain that a solution to a personal problem is coming without making the reader work for it.
Precisely. And that concept of cognitive ease extends to the specific vocabulary they tested too.
Right.
The source notes that using simple, everyday, colloquial words pulls significantly better than formal textbook English. For instance, they took a baseline ad with the headline, "How to Repair Cars," and changed one single word to make it "How to Fix Cars."
Just fix instead of repair.
Yeah, and that tiny shift to a more colloquial verb increased the response rate by 20%.
Wow, that is a massive jump for a three-letter difference.
It really is.
The book highlights another one that I found totally fascinating. Instead of saying when doctors feel indisposed, the winning ad said when doctors feel rotten.
Yeah, notice the difference in how those two phrases hit your nervous system.
Right, they feel totally different.
Indisposed is a clinical, intellectual word. It requires a split second of processing. But feel rotten is visceral. You immediately feel that in your body.
Oh, absolutely.
It completely bypasses the analytical brain and hits the emotional core instantly.
It paints a picture, just like the bank poster the author analyzes. Like, instead of listing out a complex grid of interest rate percentages and compounding timelines, the poster just used the headline, B, $2,278 richer.
It instantly dramatizes the reward.
Exactly. Humans are notoriously bad at intuitively understanding math, so the poster just did the math for them and painted the end result.
Yep.
But I have to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, go for it.
If I'm writing an email to a client and I just jam it full of words like you, how to, and free, doesn't that start sounding identical to every other piece of spam out there? Doesn't it cross the line into sounding a bit, I don't know, scammy?
That is a very common fear, but it really misunderstands why spam sounds like spam.
Okay, why does it?
Spam sounds scammy because it overpromises on something it can't deliver, or because the value proposition is just vague. Using clear, direct words isn't about tricking anyone. It's about being profoundly clear about the actual value you are offering.
That makes sense.
In fact, the source emphasizes that long headlines that explicitly state a clear benefit always outpull short, punchy headlines that say nothing. Clarity will always beat brevity.
Always.
Always. You aren't being scammy by saying you or how to.
Yeah.
You are respecting the reader's time by telling them exactly why they should pay attention.
Okay, that is a crucial distinction. You have to earn their attention by making it entirely about their needs, not about your desire to sound smart.
Precisely.
So let's say we've done that. We have the subject line, we have the headline, they click, they're looking at you. They're in the door.
Right.
What is the core message that actually keeps them in the room? How do we transition from the wrapper of the message to the actual meat of it? The source argues that the most effective, data-proven sales pitches don't actually come from a boardroom. They come from a place of deep personal empathy.
They absolutely do. The most successful communicators in this data set weren't writing like cold, faceless corporations.
No.
They were writing as vulnerable human beings who fundamentally understood human pain, anxiety, and desire.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source suggests that writing highly persuasive copy is structurally very similar to writing a deeply personal diary entry.
It is.
The most universal human appeals are usually the most intensely personal ones. John Caples himself proves this with his legendary ad, "They laughed when I sat down at the piano."
Oh, that's a classic.
Right. He didn't write about the technical specs of the piano lessons.
Yeah.
He wrote it because as a child, he deeply yearned to play the piano and thrill an audience, but he just couldn't. So he poured that personal fear of mockery and the desire for social vindication directly into the copy.
It taps into a primal human fear of public embarrassment and the euphoric fantasy of sudden mastery.
Yeah.
Or consider Jim Breslov's heartbreaking campaign for the American Cancer Society.
Oh, this one is rough.
The headline was simply, "God, give me the strength to smile." It featured a photograph of a man standing by his stricken wife in a hospital.
So sad.
And the reason that ad cut through all the usual philanthropic noise is that Breslov wasn't writing theoretical copy. He was actually the man in the photograph.
Wait, really?
Yes. He was writing from a place of absolute devastating reality. It creates a cognitive dissonance for the reader, who expects corporate charity speak, but instead is confronted with raw, bleeding human emotion. You just can't look away from that.
It is incredibly powerful, and Carl Speyer's famous Hamilton watch ad did the exact same thing.
Right.
The headline was, "To Peggy for marrying me in the first place."
Hmm.
The story goes that he struggled for days to write a standard, polished Christmas ad, and finally just stopped and asked himself, if I were writing a real letter to my actual wife, what would I say?
Just utter honesty.
Yeah, and he banged out the ad in 7 minutes, and it was so resonant it ran for over a decade.
Hmm.
But I find myself hitting a wall here.
How so?
I understand how you can write an emotional, vulnerable pitch for a cancer charity or a romantic piece of jewelry. The emotional stakes are inherently high. But what if your job is to pitch a new payroll software? Or wallboard? Or like a dictionary?
Right, the boring stuff.
Yeah, there is no tear-jerking diary entry to write about office supplies. How do you find a heart in something fundamentally boring?
That is the ultimate test of a communicator. If the product or the idea seems boring on the surface, it usually just means you haven't dug deep enough to find the real problem it solves.
Okay.
You have to locate the prospect's underlying anxiety. The source provides a brilliant example of this with a survey conducted for a cat food manufacturer.
I love this one.
The company assumed people cared about the nutritional science of the food, but when they actually surveyed the customers, they found out that what people fundamentally wanted was an odorless product.
They were worried about the cat's macros. They were terrified of having a smelly kitchen when guests came over.
Exactly. The underlying anxiety was social embarrassment. That insight led to a massive, highly successful campaign that didn't focus on nutrition at all, but entirely on odor.
Wow.
The author also analyzed a stack of tested insurance ads to see what actually worked. He sorted them by success rate. The failures featured all sorts of clever, miscellaneous appeals about safety or family.
The usual stuff.
Right. But the 5 absolute biggest winners, every single one of them had the exact phrase retirement income in the headline.
Wow. Every single one.
They bypassed the boring mechanics of insurance and tapped directly into a terrifying universal anxiety.
Right.
The fear of running out of money and being destitute in your old age.
It is about exposing the mundane anxieties we all carry but rarely talk about. Like Vic Schwab's famous ad for a mind training course titled The Man with the Grasshopper Mind.
Oh, a perfect example.
He openly admitted he wrote that as a self-portrait of his own scattered thoughts, his own frustrating inability to sit down and focus. By exposing his own very ordinary, unglamorous anxiety, he resonated with millions of people who thought they were the only ones who felt that way.
To be truly persuasive, you have to be almost uncomfortably honest about what people are actually losing sleep over, even if it is just a smelly kitchen or a cluttered inbox.
So we have the emotional hook. We've tapped into the underlying anxiety. But empathy alone doesn't close the deal, right?
No, it doesn't.
You don't buy new software just because the salesperson understands your accounting anxiety.
Yeah.
There has to be a logical bridge. How do we take that emotional attention and mechanically structure the argument so that the listener actually takes action?
This is where we transition from the psychology of emotion to the architecture of logic. It is entirely about translating features into benefits.
The double-barreled sentence. I am obsessed with this concept.
It's so effective.
The book uses a luggage example to illustrate it. A feature is just a cold fact about your product or idea. So you could write, the big two-seater has dome-shaped construction. That is a fact.
Right.
But as a consumer, my brain is asking, so what? A double-barreled sentence attaches the benefit directly to that fact, so the brain doesn't have to work. You say, the big two-seater has dome-shaped construction that provides plenty of wrinkle-free space for your suits. You never, ever leave it up to the listener to connect the dots.
Think of a feature as the steering wheel of a car, and the benefit as the actual experience of driving to the beach.
Okay, I like that.
If you just hand someone a disembodied steering wheel, they don't care. They might even be confused. The double-barreled sentence mechanically connects the steering wheel directly to the destination.
Yeah.
It fires twice in the reader's brain, first establishing the factual credibility, and then immediately delivering the emotional payoff.
It makes so much sense. Another structural pillar the source highlights is the bargain appeal. But the crucial insight here isn't just about slashing the price.
No, not at all.
If you just lower a price drastically, our psychological defense mechanisms kick in. We immediately assume something is wrong with it. It feels too good to be true. The trick is giving a very specific, logical reason for the bargain.
You have to disarm their natural skepticism with plausibility.
Right. The book tells the story of a man who could not sell his house for $80,000, which was already a low price for the area. Nobody was biting.
So what did he do?
He changed the real estate ad to read, was $150,000, now $80,000. Suddenly, the house sold immediately. By showing the original value, the bargain became real in the buyer's mind.
That's brilliant.
The Book of the Month Club executed the exact same psychology, selling a massive $125 dictionary for just $19.95 by expressly explaining it was a loss leader to get people into their subscription ecosystem.
Once the reason was clear, the skepticism vanished.
Exactly. But wait, I have to pause here because looking at these historical ads, they use huge blocks of text to explain these features in these bargains. Conventional modern wisdom says that human attention spans are completely dead. We're living in a TikTok world. Are you seriously telling me that a 700-word piece of copy actually works for a modern listener?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the idea that people don't read long copy is perhaps the most damaging myth in modern communication.
Really?
Yes. The psychological reality is this. Non-prospects won't read long copy. And that doesn't matter because they were never going to adopt your idea or buy your product in the first place.
Oh, that makes sense.
But your prime prospects, the people who actually suffer from the anxiety your idea solves, they are desperate for all the facts.
Oh, it's like going down a Wikipedia rabbit hole.
Exactly.
If I don't care about 14th century French pottery, I'm not going to read 2 sentences about it. But if I am a collector, or if I just discovered a piece in my attic, I will read 10,000 words on it and click every single footnote.
Precisely. If the topic intersects with their self-interest, their attention span is nearly infinite. The source points to legendary copywriter James Webb Young, who wrote a densely packed ad with over 700 words just to sell a necktie.
A necktie?
Yeah, and it sold 26,000 of them. The guiding principle here is William Strunk's classic rule of writing. Vigorous writing is concise, every word must tell. Concise does not mean short.
Right. It means there is absolutely no waste.
Exactly. Long copy is perfectly fine and often necessary to build a structurally sound argument, but wasted words are fatal.
Every single word has to earn its keep and push the argument forward.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a solid grasp on the mechanics. We know the simple words to use, we know the emotional empathy required to find the hook, and we know how to structure the sentence to highlight the benefit. But how do we actually generate these ideas without just staring at a blank screen for 3 hours? And more importantly, how do we know our ideas are actually good before we launch them?
Because persuasion isn't a mystical art form. It is a replicable process. And that process requires separating creation from evaluation.
Yes. The book leans on advertising executive Alex Osborne's foundational rules for brainstorming to get the mental engine running.
These rules are essential.
His first rule is the most important. No judicial judgment. You absolutely cannot criticize ideas while you were generating them. Criticism kills the fragile associative networks in the brain before they can even form.
It just shuts you down.
Second rule, wildness is welcomed. Third, quantity is desired. Your goal is to get 50 terrible ideas on a whiteboard. And fourth, hitchhiking, which is the process of combining 2 disparate ideas to engineer a super idea.
Neurologically, you have to shut off the prefrontal cortex, your inner editor, during the creation phase.
Yeah.
If you try to brainstorm and edit simultaneously, it is like trying to drive a car with the parking brake fully engaged. You get nowhere, and you just burn out the engine.
But once you take the parking brake off and you have those ideas, you have to put them to the test. And the historical testing specifics in this manual are staggering. It shows how the tiniest variables completely alter human behavior.
Oh, the numbers are wild.
We mentioned the word cars earlier,
Yeah.
but look at this. Adding just the 2 words car owners to the very beginning of a gasoline ad increased the response rate by 20%.
Incredible.
Adding the words dry up to a headline that previously just said hay fever increased the response by 27%.
Because car owners instantly segments the audience and signals, this is specifically for you.
Right.
And dry up takes a static noun, hay fever, and turns it into an active, desirable benefit.
It's surgical. And my absolute favorite example of this relentless testing is how Reader's Digest used to optimize their magazine covers.
Oh, this is a great case study.
They would print entirely different article titles on the physical cover stickers of the magazines and track which ones moved more copies off the newsstand.
So smart.
They found that a clever title like Hot Tips on Heating Your Home performed okay, But when they tested the blunt, direct title, How to Cut Fuel Bills, it vastly outperformed it.
Naturally.
And through decades of running these massive real-world behavioral tests, they discovered that the most enduring, popular topics on planet Earth are always exactly the same: healthcare, money, and self-improvement.
Because those three categories map directly back to our core evolutionary anxieties and our deepest desires for survival and status.
Exactly. And sometimes you don't even need to be polished. You just need to test an authentic thought. The source details the incredible pears case study.
I love the pears story.
Harry and David Rosenberg were literal fruit growers. They had this idea to sell premium boxes of pears by mail to high-end business executives. They drafted a decent professional sales letter, but before they ran a massive national ad, David made an offhand comment.
Yeah, he just said, imagine Harry and me advertising our pears in Fortune magazine.
Exactly. They decided to test that literal, unpolished conversational sentence as the actual headline.
Really?
And it was such a massive hit, it effectively launched the entire fruit-by-mail industry. So what does this all mean for us today? Because realistically, I can't run an A/B split test on my coworkers.
No, probably not.
How can the listener apply this rigorous, data-driven testing mindset to their daily life without treating their colleagues like lab rats?
This raises an important question because the context has obviously changed. You aren't mailing out coupons to see how many come back, but you must adopt the mindset that every single interaction you have is a feedback loop.
Okay.
Testing is the ultimate equalizer because it completely removes human ego from the equation. You might think your new project pitch is absolute genius, but testing relies strictly on actual, observable human behavior.
So how do we test then?
You test in your daily life by paying intense attention to the subtle cues. When you pitch an idea in a meeting, which specific arguments make your audience physically lean forward and which phrases make their eyes immediately glaze over.
Ah, I see.
When you send out weekly updates, what type of subject line gets an immediate reply and which one gets completely ignored? You have to drop your ego, observe the raw data of their reactions, and ruthlessly refine your approach based on what actually works, not what you wish worked.
You essentially have to become an active student of the people around you. So let's recap this incredible toolkit.
Let's do it.
First, to win attention, use simple, direct words and lean heavily on the word you. Second, find the emotional hook by speaking directly to deeply personal underlying problems you have to write from the heart, even if you are selling something mundane.
Crucial step.
Third, use the double-barreled sentence to translate every single dry feature of your idea into a clear, tangible benefit for the listener. And finally, brainstorm wildly with the parking brake off, but then rigorously test your assumptions by closely watching how people actually react in the real world.
It is a phenomenal, time-tested framework for human communication.
And I think that is the biggest takeaway. This isn't just a manual about selling neckties or dictionaries through the mail. This source material is genuinely a masterclass in human empathy.
It really is.
When you take the time to understand what people actually care about and what they secretly fear, you are equipped to connect with them on a much deeper, more productive level in every single area of your life.
It truly comes down to empathy. But I want to leave you with a lingering thought, a bit of a challenge, based on a core assumption the author makes.
Okay?
Throughout the book, Caples claims, times change but people do not change. He believed that our core human desires, health, money, self-improvement, status, are eternally fixed.
Right.
But I want you to think about the digital ecosystem we live in today. With the advent of artificial intelligence and algorithmic social feeds that are designed to serve us hyper-personalized, dopamine-inducing content instantly, are our core human desires truly the same as they were in 1983?
Wow, that's a good question.
Are the algorithms just feeding those ancient, eternal desires much faster and more efficiently? Or is modern technology actually rewiring our neural pathways to desire entirely new things? Are we still fundamentally the same humans Caples was writing to, or are we evolving into something different?
Oh, that is a heavy one to chew on. Something to seriously think about the next time you find yourself mindlessly scrolling, or the next time you're standing in front of that Zoom room trying to turn those blank stares into enthusiastic nods of agreement. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.